Okay. All right. Thank you very much to the panelists if they've joined us. We are here to talk about entrepreneurship. I think that's your buzzword these days. Everybody speaks of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurship that, entrepreneurship this. So I think we need to get a point of clarity. We need to unpack it, which is why we are here. From your side, I'll start with you, Doc. What is entrepreneurship? How would you define it?
I would define entrepreneurship as doing that which most people would not want to do, but at the end of the day, being the person that is most envied when that which you embarked on starts reaping. Definitely.
Between the glory and the...
Yes.
Mr. Shaw, what is entrepreneurship?
I think the main definitions that come into the issue of the entrepreneurship, depending where you are, meetings are created for future goods and services, are discovered, evaluated, and exploited.
Okay, all right. So that's a longer technical term. That's a longer technical sentence. A process where services are discovered. Mm-hmm. Is it for everybody? Can everybody do it?
I think you're referring to the old age debate that are entrepreneurs born or are they made? Yes. No, it's not for everyone. Because from situations of uncertainty, so they would rather know that, okay, I've got a salary coming at the end of the month, I have no losses, I have no stories coming, and I'm comfortable like that. So yes, entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
All right, so because so meaning to say, no, not everyone can actually show them that.
Yes, if you don't fail, you can't say you're an entrepreneur. Because what you will need is you're coming up with an idea that's the risk factor.
Okay.
Embarking on an idea with that uncertainty whether it will work or it won't.
Right.
Yes.
So Mr. Shoko, and as we say, it's coming up with services for the future. Then certainly this solves a problem. Now, we are speaking about the risks that are there, that actually it is not really that much certain. Can we therefore categorize and say,
all of us can take risks. One, when you look at the issue of the entrepreneur, this is an opportunity. And it's a game of hope. Hoping that if you plan well and you don't plan to fail, it will get something. But the biggest challenge with entrepreneurship, as we are talking to us entrepreneurs, because Muslims were paying, I have nothing to do, and I hear that when insurance is with their visa, because it's all about survival. Yeah. And that's why we find Doc said it's not for everyone. But you will find that in a situation like ours, we almost all of us are entrepreneurs. So it's one way or the other, because we're on a survival mode. It's the only option
to take you what the definition would be. It defines entrepreneurship as a process of designing first. After you've designed, launching, and then running that particular vocation successfully. So there's the design component. Now, if there's a design, one guy puts up a store that is selling spare parts, the next guy puts up, can we call those entrepreneurs?
No. We can't. Like what Mr. Shoko was saying, we're all in now what we call survival. You're a hustler because you've seen your neighbor selling tomatoes and it's working. And you go in there and that's what you start doing yourself, right? But that is not a business, because to say you're an entrepreneur, it means you've started a business that your children can inherit. But to hustle, okay? But if the situation decides to get better at one point, what happens to your job? What happens to that business? It's gone. So should you die today, right? Is that a business your kids can take up? That your next generations can succeed?
All right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, I think the dividing line from what we are discussing is the long-term view. Entrepreneurship is a long-term view. Mm-hmm. It is also a risk taker who then designs the path. Doing so elsewhere, and then they get on the bandwagon and they continue with it. But just to move on, globally, this is what the stats say, that average an entrepreneur creates, Mr. Shaw, about 9 jobs. This is the global average, around about there. Right, probably mostly full of your one-man briefcase, suitcase guys, but we're stuck between 1 and 3. So my question, Mr. Shoko, now is to say, how important are entrepreneurs to the economy? How important are they?
I think able to trade, and all these are things that are derived from entrepreneurs. For us to call ourselves an economy, we need to have these entrepreneurs. They are very important. They are the lifeblood of any economy. But the challenge that we have is that us can be employers or entrepreneurs. Some of us we are cut to be workers. We are good workers. I'll give you a good example for when you look basically at Zimbabweans. Have you ever met a Chinese man putting in a CV, looking for a job, and that teaches us to be employed? Unlike in other countries where the education system actually teaches you to create the employment. So you talk to a Nigerian, you wake up here and arrive here in Zimbabwe, carrying a plastic bag. The next thing you'll be asking, my brother, where can I get a sport? You want to work in English? You'll be looking for a resource to start doing something.
Yeah.
But in Zimbabwe, all of us run to universities, NAST, get degree, a master's, doctor, what, and doctor, and so on and so.
Yes.
The next thing, we're not being employed, but if we did this, it's although it's there, culturally we find, I think, the culture of entrepreneurship is going on over one or the other when you're growing up, even a local, you're local, who wants to add and supplement. Then you need the design, the planning, or you have someone to mentor you to do. But in Zimbabwe, it's a situation in which
Okay, all right. So basically underscoring the point that we've already spoken about, to say it is not everybody who is an entrepreneur. Most of us may be set out to be employees than to create enterprises. But by virtue of circumstances where our unemployment rate, because of the contracting economy, is above 90%, we have a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, but are not. And we are saying an entrepreneur, because that is where the source of the jobs are going to come from. That is where the future industries are going to come from. They're not going to come from the employees, but from the few that take to come to you. How then, or rather, what environment is necessary or is needed to generate entrepreneurs? Because I think we agree, where Zimbabwe is right now, we really need to start coming up with new industries. We need entrepreneurs to start generating those, the component of culture, a component of psych, a component of curriculum and education as well. What environment do we need for us to be able to generate entrepreneurs?
Actually, it's not an environment that you need.
Yeah.
It's a culture
Okay.
that you need to start embedding within our family. From university, get a job,
Yes.
right? I'll tell you that even as it is, as an entrepreneur, my family can come to me for help, but you still have instances where my dad would say, so, umsebenzi awukatholi." Put a certain level of respect if you're working for a certain organization that they know. But then you're looking at, you are saying global factors. You are citing the Chinese, the Nigerians. The difference there is the Chinese, for example, believe in one child perfect. If you're getting into business, that's why they all succeed, whichever country they get into. Wherever they go, they are given something to go with and establish themselves. That's why you'll never find a poor Chinese man in whichever part of the country or the world, right?
It's a culture component.
It's a culture component.
You know, I would actually draw some parallels as well. I regard myself as an entrepreneur. And rightfully so. I actually recall I was an 8th grade student, pushed right into the chain, right into university. With 3, I could see that no man. I thought to be here. But because the culture, the society expects us to go through the whole education system, get a degree, get a job. It is not there. So you are citing number one, we need to develop the culture. We need to develop the culture that actually it is possible for someone to establish it. Would you not say so?
I'll accept the fact that our culture set is wrong in terms of dealing with how we groom our entrepreneurs. It's been like that for, I think, for generations and generations. And structurally, that's why it's very important for us to be like that, to continue going the way. But also the problem is also with the parents, because we have also inherited from our parents what we call a block mentality. You know why all of us suffer here, our entrepreneurship, but then according to reserving, almost every mentality culture that we have. We overcreate. You are rightful saying, at that time it was engineering. So we produce too much engineers when the market is small. Because what we need to understand when we have to build these entrepreneurs, the first thing that we have done, we have a challenge, yoguti, ngwantwa ama club enkukhu. Ba produce inkukhu, kubulaza as 30,000. Ufike wonke ngapha empopoma ba produce all of them. We end up the market just can take 30,000. We end up with a market of 60,000. Inkukhu was 100. So that culture set, block mentality set, needs to be cut. And normally why it's like that, it is because we are all not cutting the lot of taking risk. It's safer for me to do into and do every side. But not knowing that in doing that.
I want us to look at the institutional component, government policy, and also private sector participation. Doc, those two. What can government do to enable entrepreneurs? And also, what can the private sector do?
What the government can do? Because
did you agree to that, Mr. Shoko?
no, because if you analyze the business community, those that are doing very well are actually ignoring what's going on. Wrong policies coming up every day, contradicting policies that will come up every day. We're using US dollar, we're no longer using US dollar. Where does your business stand? Do you understand? So you find that those that are doing well, they don't look at what you are doing there politically. They focus on this, that, but no, we learn from everywhere. And you'll find that while you are complaining, they are not there with you. They are growing their businesses, right? And they are flourishing. So what's their secret? Are they not in the same economy with us? You understand? Person and adapt with the situation every day.
Yes.
You understand?
So basically, I think what questions are answered. I think it's important that we all see our economy is too political. We need to depoliticize.
Yes.
We need to depoliticize.
Yeah.
That way, whatever else is happening around them.
Yes.
But also at the same time to play devil's advocate, Mr. Shoko. And this is not only in Zimbabwe. Can we completely divorce politics from business? Because globally, it is beginning to be one thing now. It's beginning that we would rather focus on creating new enterprises. But because you also use all these other things that you're focusing politically, it becomes a problem. Can we separate them?
The only unfortunate situation we have is that our politics is in such a way that it's a reverse, which is the common norm. Most people in proper world, and I think in Europe most of the time, we have people who are from business. There's a situation where politicians go into politics to make money. And where in the beyond after that, we don't have a line.
Yeah.
Where you will then find a cross line, a line that draws the ethics. We have a situation where the Minister of Energy will be a participant business-wise in the, I think you have seen it even here, where your local councillor, preaching, and I've counseling the next time say the side, say the motor, say the business.
Yeah.
It's an ends to the means, our politics. In actual fact, where politics must be a game for those that want, it's a way to behave in million very fast.
Okay. All right. So by virtue of the economic situation, as you would say.
It's not an economic situation. It's it's our politics is wrong.
Politics
is wrong.
Okay, all right. To keep it still in entrepreneurship, because I think we've got entrepreneurs who have started 2, 3, 4 years, they are going. There is a problem that you see all around. The failure by entrepreneurs to become corporate entities. They're stuck, one-man shows, 5-man shows. It goes, your Apple, your Amazons, that now have a board of directors. They've got thousands and thousands of employees. How do we transition from these 1, 2, 3 outfits, 1, 2, 3 main outfits, to corporate outfits? How can entrepreneurs transition to them? Because in actual fact, board of directors, how can we transition entrepreneurs to that?
Oh, that's fine.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, I think it all comes back to the question you brought up earlier. Why did you start that business? Okay, if you go back to why business, unlike if as an entrepreneur you're starting a business because you're passionate about that field, so being passionate about it, then you will not be redundant. You'll want to see growth every year. Okay, different avenues, you will research what others are doing and bring it back to your organization, because that is something that is within you. You didn't start it because someone else into a business from that avenue. You will extend beyond the 5-year mark, all right? But as a hustler, like I said, the lifespan is already limited. And passion for that particular business, you go outside and talk to most of these people who are degreed, selling things on, they found themselves in, because the jobs are not there in the country. So I have to go and order lotions and cooking oil and sell by the market, right? Because there's no other way of making income.
Okay.
You understand? Yeah.
So basically, what's your passion for it? And as a result, you then invest into researching, as you say, into researching how can I grow this company from A to B. The part of that research may include you taking on mentors, getting into associations of industry. That will help you grow. Now, Mr. Shoko, how important is skill?
A debate on how skilled is the entrepreneur. But I'll tell you one thing. I've seen entrepreneurs that are just good leaders, and they've brought the best skills around them to get things done.
Okay.
I've seen that happen. So to me, skill is not important. Is that the only problem with hustling is you must not stay as a hustler forever. That's the only challenge. Because business is not a charity thing. It's not a charity thing that someone will just give you something to start and run and say, go and start and run. So to some extent, there's a way of going to your dream. You have to kick doors. And in kicking doors, sometimes it's not advisable to get money from someone because you're already being a slave to someone. So you rather do what brings money very fast and go there. So to me, what is important is discipline and determination and the passion to a hustler rather than the skill.
I started my first business at 19, before I actually went to university, all right? It wasn't a small business. But then what I realized without the skill was that I would engage people to assist me, let's say with tax returns and all these things. And because there was this, because you don't know any better, right? That's when I then decided, no, let me take myself through school. I had to learn, because I realized, okay, business is my passion. Hence, first degree, master's, PhD. I then decided I'd rather know everything I need to know concerning business, so that at least you see, the challenge we have with our new generation now is they're very lazy, because they don't want to go out and work. We've taught them that everything is on their fingertips. Just go online, Google it. We are the generation where you go to the library. So skill is required. Right now, you throw them into a company, they are lost.
Okay.
They have to first Google how the job is done. But they finished university. You understand?
Yes.
But we were taught hands-on how to do this thing. So skill is very, very critical.
All right. So skill is very, very critical. In as far as up to a particular level, I also started my first business at 17. All right. At that point, the size of the work that we did was commensurate with the level of knowledge that we had. Now, as I upscaled these, I realized that my approach changed. I grew systematically,
Yes.
I mean, in view. Then I got to master's level. Now, I had 10 years of experience, practical in business, and I was in business school with employees that had been working for corporations. And it was very theoretical, very, very theoretical, which then comes to your point, to say, skill is not really important. It is getting your foot in and learning as you go. But at the same time, as she's putting it, you need the skill. Otherwise, it goes back to the problem that we spoke about again.
Can I respond to that?
To say you become a jack of all trades, let's talk. Go ahead.
Right. Because when I did my MBA here at NAST, I thought it was hard.
Okay.
Okay? And when I then went to Cyprus, I realized, no, we were playing. More so when I started teaching and lecturing entrepreneurship and economics, practical in the sense that if you are learning introduction to business, don't just submit a proposal because I've asked for a proposal to mark you. Do a proposal that you actually go out and do in your home country or wherever. Then I will mark you on something that is existing.
Right.
So if you're doing a business degree, who are now in Tanzania, back home and things like that, they give me reports.
Right.
My business is now 3 stories, or it's like this, it's like that. We don't have that in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Because here we are good theoretically.
Yes.
We need to change the curriculum.
Okay.
Yes. So that's why I'm saying what you are.
Any last remarks?
I think one has to look at the situation and say, Chinese always say, in a crisis, it's the other side of the coin which you're choosing. Are you going to be the victim or you are going to benefit from the crisis? So in this very environment, no one wants to come into Zimbabwe because of whatever is happening in Zimbabwe. So you can actually start small, and by the time everyone wants to come, you have that foundation, you have the experience, you have the drive. Because it's one of the cheapest places to start a business, as long as you're organized and determined, and you'll be there. Because there's nothing to compare. And even in terms of standard, there's no standard to compare.
Yes.
And most of the things, you might actually be the first one starting them. And it's like, wow, okay, it's okay, let's move. So I think it's an opportunity for an entrepreneur.
Okay. Yeah, so as everyone else is running away, as people are not wanting to come in, the opportunities are opening up. And so this is the space for entrepreneurs to actually make headway. Talk. You're fine?
Well, we will struggle. You'll go through days of not having a cent,
Yes.
but that is part of the process. And everything in life goes through a process, you know. And we can encourage others to also make it. The same way you're fine. It means there's a possibility that our children can set up here and do fine.
Yes.
So let's make it an environment that is conducive for the next person to come up as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's give our panel a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end. Thank you very much. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So that was our first panel on entrepreneurship. Let's give our panelists another round. For those who came early, what I mean is those who came after we had started, because you are early somewhere in the world, you are early. Okay, let's accept you're early somewhere in the world. But you may have arrived and not really fully understood what's happening here. We've got our moderator, Mr. Mpumelelo Diweni. He's a founder of Coleman Group of Companies. I keep repeating that because the sandwich I have is courtesy of Coleman Group of Companies. And his panelists, Dr. Moyo and our friend Mr. Shoko, discussing entrepreneurship, as you heard. We're going into a session where you can each, maybe those of you who have questions, you can put them across. Unfortunately, we will require you, or kindly ask those who have questions, to just shoot up here because of the nature of the recording, so that your voice is processed through the microphone. We don't have a roving mic. So you are at the annual entrepreneurs get together. The idea is to engage and talk. Any hands? Or if I put you off because now you have to come up. Yeah. Is that a hand? Okay, so I just want to count the hands.
Yeah. No.
Is this long enough?
Yeah, no, please come. Please come. It's also good exercise. Yeah. Decided to put a few calories on. Yeah. Maybe just before he speaks, we've got some housekeeping. We've got snacks at the back there. Please feel free just to walk up and grab something to drink or eat. And if you have a mobile phone, we're kindly asking you to put it on silent. We'll take it from there, okay? So you tell us who you are, your business, and then ask your question.
Thank you very much. I think I want to really come out here and applaud you for coming up with this sort of thing. Firstly, first, these are the things that when we talk entrepreneurship, the frequently walked road, we have walked and we have not seen this. So these are the things that we talk into, I think, are things that we say as practitioners today. How do we then come up with interventions that actually look at that culture and say, let's stop the culture? How do we get into the education industry? It's a sad picture to have this engineer walk into your plant and you expect them to work. They will take another 3 years before they are useful around you. It's things that we have seen, and these are highly qualified or skilled for future generations so that they are not bogged down with school, they are not bogged down with the culture that we have had. We for sure grew up to look for corporates, and we spoke highly of these corporates and we respected of them. The corporates walk out of you when you walk out of them. Thank you very much.
Okay, so what I heard there is a cry for our education system, clearly from the moderators as well. Any contribution?
Okay, I would say my small contribution towards that. I started a career guidance yearly event where I worked with the Ministry of Education, the junior counselors, and they would call in all the other schools. Half the time, business was a course that was looked upon as not valuable. The only course that was looked at as valuable was nursing, being a doctor, and all this. So we have started engaging the schools and the ministry to say we have to teach the children to become. They were saying they would actually involve the agriculture part more into the curriculum. And what I've seen is that even from primary school, they get the children to actually do some farming projects. So I think we're slowly getting there, but we need women inspired.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the organization is called Women Inspired. That's actually
Yeah.
And if we can have the next question while they're chatting, someone come up. Would you mind come? Yeah, so I'm seeing, everyone who has a question, if you can just come and sit closer just so that we manage the...
It's structured in a way that you can do the thing. I'll say our focus has always been social than to look at the business. Why I say that, the unity that we have around death must build a better society. If we can put it to say, let's have that unity. I'll give you a good example. I think we have over 1 million people from Bulawayo, about 70 million. We can start doing something with these factories that they closed. But it's because our unity and our focus is more social than anything else. The organization of that community around said things, that efficiency is...
My name is Skaulis Ospanda from Sloane Tours and Safaris and Sloane Nature Reserve. Mine is more of contribution than a question. I think the panelists, you've covered almost all the important aspects of entrepreneurship, but I didn't hear you mentioning innovation as a key. Because we did mention that people like to replicate what they've seen as a success. But I think that is not bananas. We are going to make it in business because we are complementing that person. We are not a competitor. Also, the other one that I would like to maybe mention as well is In business, we have to know each other. We have to know who is doing what. It makes life easier a lot, because that is going to help us to avoid the duplicate. Then on education, yes, our education from years ago, it was tailored for the majority to go and work. That was a requirement. There's no excuse about that. It was a requirement. People were needed to go and work. Otherwise, if you have everybody coming up with being an entrepreneur, then who is going to be the worker? That is a requirement. So as Dr. Moyo mentioned, entrepreneurship is not, we keep that industry running. Otherwise, if everybody is taught to be an entrepreneur, who is going to work? This is where, that's the time where we see people are not going to have loyalty in the company, because he is there, is aiming to do exactly what he's doing, what he or she is doing in that particular company. Then think of 10 years from now, the equipment that goes with mining. Are they having, yes, they have the skill, they know that you have to use maybe a hammer and mill and whatever, but are they having the equipment to start their own mining? Because we are telling them, okay, go and be an entrepreneur, you can be your own employer. Great, you can be your own employer, but that is if you are the right person for being an implementer. So somebody does the thinking and I will do the implementation. If you give me the position of leading with the fact that you saw me being a hard worker in the company, I cannot, at times I won't be that good leader that you require, but give me a wheelbarrow to put.
Let's have the next contribution so that we just round it up and then we...
Thank you. I'm Rose Makakula. I run a home cakery business called The Sweet Life. I heard you talking about education, I think a bit of financing, but I feel like there's a election where there's sort of like incubation, maybe in Blayo or in Zimbabwe. I've never heard of it, because I feel like most of us fail within the 3 to 5 years, because we reach a point where, okay, I'm now producing maybe 5 cakes a day, then what next? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to run these finances and so on? So I want to know if there's a situation where there's incubation.
Mentorship is a critical component of this chain. In developing
Exactly.
I mean, you ask the way from those that have gone the path before.
Yeah.
She's at 5 cakes now. What can we do?
Okay, I'll talk about the mentorship part. With mentorship, there's a general misconception. Eh? People assume that the mentor is supposed to approach you, around you. Who has the skill set? Who has made it in the field you are in? Make an appointment. Go and speak to that person. Ask them to mentor you in that particular area, because at times mentors that you approach are not exactly good. That people will look at Mark Zuckerberg, for example, and take him as a mentor, but the only thing they will take is he dropped out of university. So because he dropped out, I will also not apply myself at university. But what they could not contain his entrepreneurship skills, because their server crashed. Did you know that? He actually had put a server within the university and it crashed. So they then told them that if he fixes it, they will take it for themselves. And we're calling it Facebook. They moved to a garage with a group of his friends, and that's where they started, and this is where they are now. So to then say you're looking at a mentor, look at the whole storyline behind people. And I didn't just pick out that he dropped out of university, so I'll stick with that too. You understand? With regards to those that are within reach, approach them, talk to them. And yes, with regards to organizations, Rosemary, there are plenty. Mine is also one of them. And you'd be shocked, there are banks that also mentor.
Okay.
Yes. Banks within Zimbabwe that also mentor. They've even approached me to say, people are not coming. Can we partner with you?
Okay.
Yes. So if a bank is saying we have a problem,
the best in your industry, identify someone whom you think can actually take you to the next level. Number 2, set an appointment. Go and see them. Number 3, go to your bank and ask them for a mentor. Mr. Shaw.
Petition. Let's collaborate. That's the biggest challenge we have. As a people in Matabele, we compete too much rather than collaborating. You see, Rosemary can do 2 cakes.
Yeah.
You can do 3 cakes. We can have them bid 20, and then we go to TM and say we're able to give you 3. It's more than anything else. It takes all the market. We start complaining.
Okay. All right. So collaboration is one. Look at your peers. Horizontal alignment. Look at them. Can you have partnerships that can actually take you to the next? I think actually that is the concept behind the Perao Society. That your 50th bond. Just ladies and gentlemen, in a round of applause for Pani.
Thank you so much. Yes, you can take your seats, and I'll request Nontogozo Masuku to come to the front. Maybe, was that Rose? Rosemary? Is it Rose? Roseline, sorry. There's also, I'm a trustee of something called Innovation for Africa. It's through a journey, so keep in touch. We'll also try and make sure that information comes through to you. By the way, we're at a golf course, golf club. Let me see those of you who play golf. Okay, I can see 1, 2. So I think that's something, Mr. Ndiweni, that's something we need to fix. We can't meet at a golf club and only 2 of us. Make that 2.5, including me. I'm a bit of a half. Actually play golf. Next of PACG and Co. Among a couple of things that she does, other things that she does. She was also recently in the newspaper, Chronicle and Standard, for a joint venture project that she's working on. I don't know if anyone of you saw something called Yaka Square. A few of you saw that. It's a platform where people in the diaspora and locally can get projects done. You know how a lot of money was happen, apart from the other things that she does. So she's looking at a segment that looks at lasting businesses. There was an issue of, I heard a dimension of hustling and sustainability in the last session. Now we want to look at businesses that have kind of gone full circle and continue to thrive. So I'll hand over to Nontogozo as I continue to invite you to grab some sandwiches.
As Mr. Masuku has stated, our panel is going to be discussing how we can build lasting businesses, transgenerational wealth and businesses. I think I can quote Mr. Shoko. I also told Dr. about the difference between an entrepreneur and a hustler, and she said, hustlers, you do it for a time, and then before you know it, the business is gone. But whereas when you're talking about entrepreneurs and businesses that last, we're thinking as business people, we want to change that mindset of, what can I have now? But we want to change it such that we are saying, what can I do? How can I leave a legacy for my grandchildren? And how can this business last for years and years? Arenel, I'm sure we know Arenel, and there are a few others out there, but a few, there's only a handful. And so today we have 2 panelists who are going to come up and are going to help us unpack some of the strategies that they have used. Thank you very much. And then we have Mr. Ngube. He's the compliance officer at Arenal. Welcome, Mr. Ngube. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Anne and Mr. Ngube are not the founders of the organizations that we are not the founders of Femina or Arenal, but they have been in the business. So we'll start off with Anne. And please just briefly tell us a brief history of Femina, when it started and where we are today.
Sure. I did my handbags on the cord. Zimbabwe. Well, Rhodesia first, we had some waves there, then we went into Zimbabwe, we've done the waves, and we've been able to survive through very, very careful management of budget and spending, and that's just the culture that we've been raised in.
Who is the founder of Femina Garments?
My grandfather, John Robinson, he started it because, like many Zimbabweans, in 1968 or 67, Northern Rhodesia and Southern Rhodesia split, and he lost his job. He needed to be able to pay the bills, and so that's how Femina started.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And over to you, Mr. Ngube. Please tell us a brief history of Arena.
Thank you very much for inviting us for this event. Instead of celebrating cooperation with Arena Private Limited, but we are yet people say Arena System Arena was started in 1941 as a partnership between Shirube, and then the company has grown, mainly driven by three things, that is experience, quality, and innovation. I'm happy there was one speaker who spoke about innovation. Right now, people are familiar with our products. We started with sweets and biscuits, but we've diversified into other product range. We are now doing sauces, by sauces that mean mayonnaise, salad cream. We are now into working the energy drink business. In a nutshell, Arena Private Limited is a family-run business.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Ngube. Thank you. And then customers your grandfather had, where did he start? I mean, he had lost his job, but how did he start?
Well, he recruited my grandmother. She went out and bought an outfit, and she came home and she ago, and he recruited Mr. Moyo. Mr. Moyo knew how to sew, he knew how to make patterns, and they started in the garage with 3 sewing machines, and that's how they started. It was very slow in the beginning.
And did he get a loan from somebody, or this was something that, he used money that he already had?
I'm really not sure when it came to starting to finance. I know the general theory in our family is don't take money. If you have to actually take a loan, I will step back. I don't want to do that. My mom is far better with making those decisions than I am. I am more likely to say no. If we have to take a loan for it, then we don't need it. I'd much rather we save.
About how we can build lasting businesses. And from the conversation so far, what I'm getting is, for example, at Femina Garments, they started small, and then they've grown to what they are today. And then we also talk about innovation and diversification. And I would like us to just unpack that a little bit. I'll go over ages and declines. And in a period of rapid change, such as the present, the decline will be fast. So how did you, maybe my question is twofold. Number one, how did you determine which products to go into? As you were into sweets and biscuits, but how did you?
I want to come back to the issue of innovation. I think there's a misconception. When people talk about innovation, they think it's technology. It's not only technology. Innovation is ideas. I identified that in the market was a gap that we could fill mainly through innovation. We managed to get our ideas through the board, and also we come up with those products that we thought would drive the business. And there are 3 insights basically into how this business has grown. The first insight that I want to bring to attention is what we refer to. A golf club has got a sweet pot. That sweet pot is the point where the energy of the swimming club is most possible. And there was less distance and also get less accuracy. But when we hit the sweet pot, we enjoy the ball going forward. So in a way, it's sweet pot. So managers need to then analyze those sweet spots. Those sweet spots help the organization mainly to drive up production, reduce costs, also drive business. When I mean think management, I mean with the information that
regarding giving the managers, they have to come in a format where the format matches their thinking. We've been able to grow the level of our talent. It's not sourced. That's one of the key drivers of the business. The third one is business intelligence technology. We've been able to invest in state-of-the-art equipment. But we've been driven by those three insights that have actually made us who we are as Arrow right now. We continue to grow. We started as a localized company by new markets in South Africa, Botswana, DRC, Zambia, Malawi, Namibia. You get into one of the Shoprite stores, you get sure to get another product. And we are actually big as an organization. That is our more. If you look at why this business is lasted, is I've worked for a corporate, a big corporate myself, as a senior man. I've seen a corporate going down. One of the corporates going down. If you miss the structure of the company or the organization structure, you've lost the business. The company that I was working for was a top behavior, a project structure. But if you look at the company that I'm opposed to the board, and then for the managers, less than 10 managers reporting to the room. So in terms of thinking, you are able to lose and also get a buy-in in such a structure than they are suppressed because they are not at that level where they are supposed to be thinking like that. So in terms of the human resource part of the organization is also driven the business where it is because of what MD money and the selling.
Thank you so much. I think there is so much that we have just got from what he said. He spoke about the structure, very important. You know, many of us, we want all these fancy titles and manager this, manager that, but he's saying for them what has worked is having that flat structure where there are not too many heads. Sometimes they say too many cooks spoil the what? Spoil the... And I think we'll speak about what it means to be a customer-centric organization and building talent. I love that. He says they actually build their talent. So they grow, they nurture their employees, and they don't know what. They don't get employees from outside, but they actually nurture them. And that state of the art. We have been very strict about management of budgets and spending. How about innovation? We speak about innovation. How have you maybe reinvented yourselves as company governments, and how have you innovated? And being in the clothing industry, there's probably just so much you can do in terms of innovation, but how have you actually done it?
Was the fact that we weren't online, we weren't utilizing technology the way we should have been using it. And it was really good because in the beginning I had a serious fight when it came to that because we were used to the old way of doing name. If you go into the shops, you'll see something called boutique. You'll see Femina underneath it, but really the focus is on the actual brand name of the item. We produce for Edgar's and we've done for Meikles, we've done for a lot of people over the years. But we were very quiet about the fact that we did not have the money to have a salesperson on the road. So I started selling things in a way that our factory had never done. We'd always gone out with that little bag of samples and traveled the country or countries, wherever we were, and sold that way. So because we didn't have the funds, I started using other technologies who refused to allow me to use Facebook in any way if it had anything to do with her products. And now, of course, she's my biggest supporter. So we really started utilizing Facebook a lot. We've moved away from, although I do go on the road and they will tell you everything you need to know about how awful your product is or how good it is. And they will tell you what you're missing in the market, which is absolutely vital if you want to be able to stay on trend. The owners oftentimes know nothing. They really don't. They just know how much money's been made. Yeah, they don't. It is brilliant. If you're not using WhatsApp Business, please go and take a look. You can put catalogs on there. You can put quick replies on there. We have a schoolwear department, which is, you know, it's pretty tough, I got to tell you, because we sell directly to the public, which is what's done is I've set up a WhatsApp Business for her. She's got quick replies in there. She can handle the volume a lot quicker to be able to just send out these quick replies. They can go on to look at the catalog for our corporate and our well, just for the corporate lines at the moment. We're moving on to the schoolwear. So it makes us in love with that. Facebook absolutely love it. How many people have their businesses on Facebook? Facebook has got so many different ways to do marketing. If you haven't been onto it, Facebook Blueprint is a fantastic place to learn. I tried to do one of the where our ads had been performing so well. Oh my goodness, we were getting inquiry after inquiry after inquiry. In the one day, I think I've sent out 45 emails from our Facebook ads. Then all of a sudden, it went quiet. I was doing the same thing, the exact same thing, and I didn't know what had gone on. Web address in your post, and then boosting it. So it doesn't matter how much you spent on it, how much you tried to spend on it, they would not actually put it on as many feeds as they should have. So it took me a few weeks to figure that out, I'm ashamed to say. Rode on with that, never gone on the road with it. And that at one stage, things have changed. We were up to 40% of the business was corporate wear, and I did not go on the road with that. That was only sold through Facebook only. So for us, innovation really has been, especially like with our schoolwear. We're selling schoolwear for schools in Vic Falls and Hwange. Well, those parents right now are having to do all of that through WhatsApp. Although we've got a very efficient way to handle them, it'd be so much better if we were just online. So I'm trying to move that forward. And that's quite a difference for a factory, forefront, because honestly, it takes an amazing amount of work to do. But if you stay on top of the technologies, there's so many things to help. You know, I've actually mentored quite a lot of young women with their businesses, and they go, oh, but I don't have time to be on Facebook. Comes up. That is scheduled. I spend one afternoon, maybe 4 hours, which is a lot of time, 4 hours creating all of these posts for the next 6 months. Right now, if you go into my schedule right now, I'm all the way up to 6 months on some things. Like I'll say that maybe Tuesday is a tip day or something. You know, you've got to be able to, our fashion, we're still doing through the boutiques, although the boutiques are really struggling in Zimbabwe right now. So I do think eventually we're going to make a transition, and that's going to be online as well. Although we're trying to keep them alive. While they're still alive, I'm going to continue to try and help them. The rest of it just really are killing them. Schoolwear as well. I think we've also got Falcon. So we've got 3 schools that are not inside Bulawayo, and a lot of those parents are all over the place. So to be able to be online with that too. So we're making those transitions slowly but surely. But certainly Facebook, Instagram is another Instagram sales. So if you aren't really investing your time in technology, people who tell me Facebook doesn't work, well, you haven't actually learned how to do it.
Yeah.
If you do, you'll be able to get it there.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. And someone said if your essence of success is to think that what you did yesterday will be sufficient for tomorrow. So what you did yesterday is not sufficient for tomorrow. So we have to move with the times. Now, over to you, Mr. Ngube. We spoke about being customer-centric. Could you please just unpack that for us? What does it mean to be customer-centric? Because I know, what does it mean to be customer-centric?
Okay, to customer-centric is, I think, gone are the days when we used to produce the product that we want as standardized. You know what is quality. So, if you are a business that is not customer-centric, that does not look into what the customer wants, then you rather not be in business, because the figures will tell you that you need to balance the two. Because remember, we're in business to make money. That is the first aim of being in business. So you look at the customer and say, what does the customer want? If we are able to meet that extent, we are able to deliver the program in 90 days. That's what the customer wants. That is number one. Obviously, the shareholders, the investors, would like a I'm happy. One of the panelists is talking about Facebook. We are on Facebook. We are not that active, but we see our customers through Facebook. Once you do that, you're going to go into the other markets. I think we are aware of the African continent of free trade, where all the African countries will be able to trade and quite in Zimbabwe. So what is key is looking at the customer fit. That's how we managed to get into the SADC region. I think South Africa is strict in terms of food safety. They are strict on food safety, what we brought to prepare business. As you need to know, so there's one key issue that we need to standards.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Ngube. I know there could be people who want to ask questions, but I think from our conversation, what has come out is standards are key, and investing in your employees. I think as we were waiting to start, and you said something very interesting about what your mother actually says about employees. Could you kindly just share?
A lot of trouble. We still had the Zim dollar and things were very uncertain. And we were doing a lot of stuff for the staff that were over and above what anybody else was doing out there. So I was asking questions about it. And I said, well, obviously this will endear us to our staff and they will be more loyal. And she said to me, never do it because it's the right thing to do. Yep. And I think, even though my mom says no, that doesn't endear loyalty to us, I feel that that's not quite right because we've had employees that have been with us for decades, longer than I've been alive. We had Mr. Svanda. He was just, he embodied Femina for me because without my grandfather around, he was the link. And certainly, he was just a good, honest man. There's a gentleman. I think there's very few gentlemen. No offense meant to the gentleman in this room. He was another absolute gentleman. And for us not to have those people at Femina, to me, is just so sad. But we've got a lot of other people who've been there a very long time. Our factory manager has been there 45 years, so longer than I can actually remember. Wow. I'm 48, so things were going really bad in the country. And we obviously needed to reduce our staff. And we had a voluntary retirement, and we gave them packages. And there's about 20 staff members who'd been there over 30 years. So it was sad to have them. We've got quite a few staff members whose kids are third generation as well. Wow. So it's not just me. But we do have a theory at Femina with that, is that if you are a family member, you better work harder than anyone else because you have to prove you belong there. You can't just be there just...
Thank you so much for that. Over to you.
Yes, I think anyone who has a question... Those who came late, we need you to come up and speak from here. For the purposes of recording and so on. So feel free to come and take these seats while we ask questions one at a time. I think you're getting some serious stuff. I hope you appreciate what you're getting up here, because you've just gone into some of these companies that we rarely have the opportunity to get into, and we're getting the front row seat, and all for free, thanks to Coleman. So let's make use of it. Come and sit up front and ask. Am I seeing a question? I can't believe it. Okay, I've got one. Do we have another one? Okay, I'll ask the second one, but surely we've got a third one. Going, gone. Okay? Do you want
this long? My question is on the staff. Over the years, the skill, has it improved locally? What has been your feel within the business? The ethic, the work ethic. There is a general perception now that we have lost the work ethic that we once had. Are you guys seeing that in your businesses? And if you are, how are you dealing with it? I mean, I think I come also from a background having worked outside the country. You come here.
I think one of the key drivers of the business has been first the customer, then the employee, and also the owner of the business. Yeah, there's no doubt that the economy is not in a good state. But we're trying as an organization to ensure that we know that in terms of the pay structure in the country, it is sort of driven by our laws. By laws, I mean sort of the collective bargaining agreement that we have. But as an organization, we get paid our employees above what that is actually giving us an impetus for growth. I was also going to talk about giving back to the community that you belong to. I think we are one of, I'm not breaking, but we are one of the organizations in this country that employ now we have about 10 employees from that came from Jairus Chief. We are also involved in also corporate social responsibility. I think for the past 5 years we've received the awards. We need to give back to the community so that we sustain the business. So don't about making profit, but also investing in the community, investing in the country. So basically, in terms of staff development.
I think talking on skill level, it's very hard because a lot of that skill level has left the country. So that is challenging. But I think I've found, especially since I've come home, in the States, if somebody couldn't do the job, you fired them and you got the person who could, because there was plenty of skilled people. It was fantastic because I've really learned that you've got to put the right person in the right job. You might not be able to get rid of them. You might not be able to get rid of them. There may be no one else. So you have to find what their skill level is, what they're strong at. And I find a lot of the time when we've got this thing in our family. We work in every single department in the factory over a period of years. So I spent my time going from department to department to department. And in one stage, I was running the dispatch department. And a young kid came in from the rural areas, tape, the tape gun. And I said, tape all these boxes. There were 15 of them, and I walked away. It had never, ever occurred to me that somebody had never come across tape before. I came back about an hour later, and this kid is covered in tape. There's tape all in a bundle. So I go to the manager and say, what's the deal here? Is he not quite all there? And he says to me, he's never actually seen tape before. And where was the failure? Was it his failure or my failure? It was my failure because I didn't bother to find out, did he know what to do? Did I love him? And honestly, finding the right job for him and teaching him was the thing. So oftentimes I'm finding that when employees fail, it's actually our fault. Sometimes you've got someone who just doesn't want to do the job, and then obviously you have to move them on. Was it actually you?
I think my question was around family-run businesses. What are the dynamics around family-run businesses in terms of structure and also in terms of, how should I put it, all families at
I don't know, you find that we are talking of a family that is diversified. A family that is not only into food, a family that is into other business. So even that a family-run business in the sense of, sorry to say, run by wives, because it's totally different. I don't know, it's a family business, yes, but it's run like a corporate. You don't see the form of the managing director. It's rare that you see the founders of the business. If you on the occasion you talk to them, really they will be, they will be wanting information from you, but you don't.
Yeah.
Do you want to contribute to that?
Yeah, ours is very structured as well. There's no such thing as she's my mother when I walk into the door. I'm an employee and I have certain things I have to accomplish. And that's the way it's been for our family. That's why so many of us have been fired. In a wheelchair. He's got cerebral palsy. He works for us. The workers' committee was upset with the way that he was doing his work. He was not pulling his weight, and he got fired. My mom said, no, the workers' committee makes a decision, and if they're firing you, they're firing you. End of story. So, that is where it's like dead weight. Yeah. Honestly, there's dead weight. So don't employ them just because they're a relative. Yeah. It means nothing. You're going to pull your company down if you do that. So if you don't have the skill level, my aunt once told me, she said, well, I think I've said this already, it wasn't because of your family that you got that job. So yeah, that's why a lot of us don't last in our family.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Appreciation to Nonto Masugu for moderating that panel, and our guests, Anne and remind me again to vacate their seats. Thank you so much. At this moment, while some of us were making our way to this meeting, some people were here already, well in advance, and we want to appreciate them. One of the people was, is there Denzel? Denzel Sita? Okay. But certainly Forbes was here. Forbes was one of the first few people to be here. Is that you, Forbes, in the blue? Yeah, just come over and tell us in 1 minute who you are, what your company does, the Early Bird
advertising agency. What we do is that we're a creative agency, and our main expertise is creativity in terms of design, in terms of thought, in terms of strategy. We conceptualize from logos to branding, to animation, TV adverts, scripting, the whole works. We just help companies to sell. That's basically what we do. Thank you.
Don't you think came back? So left her flyer, disappeared and came back is Sfiso. Do you want to come briefly, Sfiso? Yes. The bar has been set quite high on time management. So if you just want to come briefly, tell us about what you do, and appreciate you coming on time.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Fiso Agbetoka. I'm encouraging people in Matabeleland to grow their businesses, produce Matabeleland, buy Matabeleland, sell Matabeleland, love Matabeleland. That's what we're all about. Anybody, anyone can join, this organization. I mean, earlier on, somebody talked about mentorship. Those are one of the things that you might be able to find within our organizations, that there will be people in your business doing it, succeeding, who will be more than happy, to mentor fellow entrepreneurs who might want to go into that kind of business. I'm a farmer myself.
I love this, yeah, people who know how to keep time. I'll come for mentoring on timekeeping. The last panel is the one that's talking about falling forward. We've got Arnold Moyo. Can I see you, Arnold? Oh, okay. Arnold Moyo, do you want to make your way up to the front? Arnold Moyo is the acting innovation. Now we've got someone who's actually paid to innovate on the panel. I'll give him this opportunity to introduce his guests for our last panel. Take it away, Arnold. Thank you for coming.
Session we are going to be talking about falling forward, and to help us interrogate issues underlying this subject, we've got Mr. Ntanda Zodule, the founder of the embroidery shop. Tradition normally requires us to honor ladies, but I deliberately decided to break away from the tradition because this particular lady is also not a conformist. Sometimes I'm doing to just greet the audience and tell us a bit about himself.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ntanda Zodule, the founder of the embroidery shop. Basically,
myself, I subscribe to both the entrepreneur and hustler mentality because I started off as a hustler as well. And like Mr. Shoko said, you realize sooner or later that hustling.
Thank you, and over to you, Samu.
My name is Angeliso Chuma. I'm the founder of Let's Connect, the founder of the Winner Circle, and a co-producer of the show called The Girls' Table.
I think I'll be doing our audience a disservice if I, first of all, don't give you an opportunity to talk about your journey and the obstacles that you face, the challenges that you encounter, how you follow, what your journey is in life.
Oh my goodness, my story is very long, so I don't know where to start. Started entrepreneurship when I was young. I used to buy cotton wool and sell to UGH. I think I was upper six. I was doing my A levels. Then I went overseas and I came back and I trade power, TVs, and then you know how the business I failed. Then I started importing maize from Zambia and supplying national foods. That business also failed. I have so many businesses that failed, so I think I'm perfect for falling. 412, greens, and that business also failed. I don't want to bore you with how many businesses I failed, but every business led me to what I'm doing now, which is the Winner Circle. The Winner Circle, the idea is to transform people's mindset, to transform all the negatives into positive, and also the Let's Connect. clothes, I'll also do the same thing. You know, I think that's what we do as Zimbabweans. We see someone doing it and then we do it as well. So I wish someone had taught me all these and all these get-togethers. I never had access to them. But because of that, that's when I formed this community to make sure that other people don't make the same mistakes that I made, and I make sure that other people.
Thank you very much, Samo. You talk about seeing what your neighbor is doing and doing the same. And you mean just disappeared because of stage fright. The way here refers, we pick up from Samu's story is that when she fell, she woke up on a different idea. She fell on this idea and woke up on a different idea. Things happened differently. I don't know how things happened for Mtandazo.
Fortunately for me, I'd say I've always done embroidery business. One thing that I took leave from early on is that I adopted the innovative approach in appreciation of what I'm saying. I was forced into entrepreneurship myself by circumstances because I used to work for a large-scale clothing company. I won't mention the name here. It got to a point where we're literally not earning our salaries on time. It got so bad to a point that we tried to negotiate as the workers team with the management then as to what could be done so that we could at least get something. And then the response there was, you guys can just perhaps start developing yourselves into salespeople. Every crisis, there's an opportunity. I went to the dispatch, looked at whatever was there, and went out and tried to market whatever was in our dispatch. With the fallback position that I could take as much stock as I wanted. Some luck with one huge association that gave me an order for thousands of t-shirts. So I went back to the company, asked for those, I was given, went and delivered, and within a month I had thousands of dollars in my pocket. Fully paid. I again pounced on the opportunity as I was growing this sewing or clothing supply business, in the sense that I met a lot of clients who wanted embroidered work done on the garments. And it's with the cash that I had made, I decided again to purchase brand new machinery for embroidery. And as they say, the rest is history. It's been difficult over the years. We haven't been spared the economic ups and downs. Perhaps try to import that directly for ourselves from China. And as of now, we're actually supplying some consumables as well to other embroiderers in the city.
Wow. We've stayed in your trade for long enough until we are known. I remember you saying that sometimes people go from one business to another too quickly before they are known, before they create a brand. You think that perhaps that's the reason why you've been around this long?
I think so, because what we're into is also related to my first degree as well. By the way, I've got a first degree, I've also got a master's degree, MBA. Like the number of strengths in that business, in the sense that we are doing something that we have a full technical understanding of, and as well as the innovative side of things. So our deliberate decision to is much better competing from a strength position compared to this monkey business that Mr. Ndiweni referred to earlier on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. In the earlier sessions that we had, statistic that says that only 10%, actually only 1%, 1 in every 100 startups see the fifth year of their business. 1 in every 100 entrepreneurs see the fifth year of their business. interpreted together with information that came again from the same panel, where in the panelists' concluding remarks they say that Zimbabwe is full of so many opportunities. It's the best time to go in now. Zimbabwe is the cheapest place to start a business. Whenever there's chaos, there are always opportunities. Then I ask myself, I think it's important for us to start this before we start talking about the content. Was we want to know why in the first place businesses fail in the midst of such a sea of opportunities as seen by some of our colleagues.
I'll start by the environment that we're in. I don't want us to pretend that Zimbabwe is okay. The first thing that we need to be aware of is the environment that we're in. Zimbabwe right now is not conducive. Yes, there are opportunities. Yes, as entrepreneurs, we always like to say, wherever there's a crisis, there's an opportunity. But we need to be realistic. The environment right now is not conducive for any startup. So I believe that most of the people, that the first thing for me is the environment. If we start there.
Okay, I'll come back to that. Mr. Joseph, what's your take on why entrepreneurs fail?
Personally, I would say one of the gifts of being a small, blessings rather, of being a small entrepreneur on a certain path which leads to definite destruction. I think the high statistic in failure of entrepreneurs emanates from the fact that we lack flexibility to some extent, things to implement in a business. I'll give you an example where we changed something. We have been faced with very difficult circumstances in our own business. Like I said, we are not excluded from anything, but we've always and give them maybe up to month end to pay. The bond note was introduced, and we sat down and noticed that whatever we're making was quickly getting depleted before it even reached our hands. And some of them, I think we lost at the time, but we felt it was for our own survival. We changed the policy from accounts and cancelled accounts and asked that they pay immediately on collection of their check. Not comfortable, and actually most of them were problematic when it came to payments as well. Sorry to say. And then the ones that were comfortable continued coming back. They paid, we did their jobs diligently, attended to every quality. I'm proud to say it has actually worked. So that's just but one of the examples where agility is required when it comes to whatever macroeconomic condition that has changed to your own detriment as a business.
Is that entrepreneurs will still need their first order, will still need to make their first few sales, find it very difficult to make such important moves that will ensure their survival. I think that the little orders that they've got, they have orders that they need, and so they're literally crawling at the feet of their clients, asking to the best interest of your business. Are you making necessary interventions to safeguard yourself against the changing environment, or you are too desperate?
Yeah.
I think what's coming out is that you become too desperate as an entrepreneur and you allow yourself to remain in one spot, one position, just in order for the environment. I would like us to interrogate that a little bit further. You have not arrived during the first session when one of the panelists says this entrepreneurship is not really some people are making it in the hostile environment that we've got. And that is empirical evidence that anyone with the right mindset, anyone wants to pay, not to look at politics, not to follow these processes, not to indulge in a pity party, not to focus on the turmoil that's happening.
Because, as I said, I'm the fan of the inner circle, and I'm big on the mindset. I'm one person who believes that you can do anything. But we also have to be realistic. As a business person, as an entrepreneur, you have to be aware of the environment that you're in. Because you can't pretend. If we pretend, very harsh. And I'm not choosing that as an excuse. As you said, Uguti, how it changed, they were charging in US dollars, and then one day you have to move. So the inconsistent of the government policies, they're going to impact us whether we like it or we don't. So as entrepreneurs, we need to tell each other the truth. Firstly, this is what's happening. So how can I make it work for me? How can I manage in case the government tomorrow introduces another policy or another statutory instrument that will affect my business? If we start from there, I believe that we can do better. But if we want to pretend and say it's just the mindset, yes, we all have great minds. I'm sure that so many young people also want to get into business. They have excellent minds, but the economic, in case another policy that will come that will not be favorable to you, what would you do? Because if you are going to cover it up, we're just lying. And the other thing is, we know how the government continuously changes its policies. Us as entrepreneurs, we need to start thinking of advocacies that are not fair to us. How can we move forward? Because we can, I don't know, I feel like we like to lie to each other about it, but if you're aware of the environment that you're in, it's better.
Yeah. And actually, having listened to you now as you elaborate, I don't think you just have to maintain the environment. And you are saying you've got to be cognizant of the world around you, and come up with a plan and a strategy of how you are going to navigate the pits and the dangers that lie ahead to make sure that you're doing it. Moving forward, it is apparent, it's accepted that entrepreneurs will fail. Others doing water. Tomorrow you're selling pumpkins, watermelons the other day. Then there are others who fall and rise on the same idea. When they fall, nobody sees it. They are in their garage where they started their business. They rise on the same idea. Tomorrow we see them selling the same watches that they were selling yesterday. But certainly, it is apparent to me that everybody fails. There's a quote by Napoleon Hill that says, "A man never tried anything." So I think we have to transition and get to a point where we cease to stigmatize failure, and understand that falling is part of the journey. Now, in your view, Mr. Dube, what can entrepreneurs do to make sure that when they fall forward?
Thank you. I think it goes back to going back to the drawing board. The moment we all decided to be entrepreneurs, I said circumstances forced me, but I forgot to mention that deep down, and it was always exciting to buy stuff and go and sell there and count how much money you've made. And it was clear to me that one day I would want to be an entrepreneur, just that I was pushed onto it at the wrong time and under the wrong circumstances. Coming back to your question, and I'd like also to clarify the issue that we're on the same page about our viewpoint on the challenges in this country. What I'm simply saying and advocating for is we can find, you got into that business in the first place, how far you've come, because a lot of us tend to forget how far we've come. Where you started off, where you're going, your vision board, what are you planning to achieve at the end of the day, and what are the impediments in your path towards your achievement. But your skill has not diminished. You still have the skill, you still have the know-how. Perhaps one of the options that you may go for is exporting. I know many people say it's easier said than done, but a lot of those critics on the same note have not even taken look at the first point after, actually the second point after identifying, going back to who you are. You now look at the problems, and after identifying the problems, you look at how you can navigate around them. We have agreed agendas through the lobbying that she's talking about, but until such a solution comes from that, you need to be soldiering on with your own strategies in the business. So it is these strategies where I think most of us falter.
Followed. The need for you to fortify your mind and ask yourself who you are, whether you're really meant for this, and to build the strength to pick up from where you left after a fall. Criticism can come from outside, from haters, from competition, but sometimes when we fall, we even disappoint ourselves and we really become hard on ourselves and criticize ourselves. What advice would you give to such an entrepreneur?
Want to analyze yourself first, so that whatever anyone else says about you or how many times you fail, it doesn't hit you. That's what I do. When someone else says anything about me, I've already done it. So you're not shocking me. But you know what? You mentioned something about culture, and something that annoys me a lot. Culture. Failing, saying I fail at value, I'm just going to leave it. But I don't think it's true. Anyone can do it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you can do it. But the thing is, it won't be easy. So you have to be resilient, you have to be persistent, you have to be passionate about what you're doing. Because most of us, when we get into business, we're getting into business because we think we need to be in business. Like in Zimbabwe, I'm sure, and it's just not easy. You just have to know that you need to be resilient, you need to be a hard worker, you need to know that this journey is just not for everyone.
Picking up from there, when you talk about being your first critic and understanding yourself, it takes me back to the journey of entrepreneurship with all its risks and hazards is really an emotional roller coaster. How do you...
For me, as I said, I'm my worst critic. I criticize myself more than anyone else. I sit down when I fail, I'm like, okay, what made me fail? What did I do wrong? And most entrepreneurs or those that want to start, and just know that failure leads you to other things. Like me, can you imagine if I'd given up and I don't know how many businesses I failed? Where would I be today? But every failure for me has led me to what I'm doing now, which I love. And I'm like, I should have done this 20 years ago. So don't give up.
As we reach the end of our panel discussion, I'd like to find out from you, Mr. Dube, how important is an entrepreneur's support network? How significant is that aspect in an entrepreneur's ability to keep?
Around entrepreneurship is to look at the company that you keep. The moment you get lost in that area, this is where you have a lot of criticism coming your way when things haven't gone exactly way. And people that are also like-minded and stay around. Let's use the mentorship associations or groups that we've been advised of. I'm glad so many of them that I didn't even know existed are there. And definitely this is when you lose all hope when things go bad for you. You need people that you can look up to when things go south. Yeah.
I wanted to add, network is the best thing. And because when I started, I didn't have anyone. I didn't know about these networks. And I want to add that networks are very important. People who fail, they can tell you what to do and what not to do. And I know people will say, if you go to someone who has failed, they'll discourage you. But for me, I seek after those who have failed because I know that they know the formula of failing. So instead of me going that route, I'll do completely.
The ones that you're talking about.
Even if those who failed and do not come up, you learn more. For me, that's what I've done. That's the formula that I use. I make sure that I speak to those who have failed so that I know exactly what not to do. Because we tend to run to those who succeed. And those who succeed, they never want to share their secrets. Most of them.
Okay. This has been a well of wisdom from somebody whose CV is full of companies that no longer exist. And from somebody who's done this one thing and has stuck to it, and it's been a success. So when you do fail, when you do fall, go back to the drawing board. Who are you? Psych yourself, work around, understand yourself, the emotional intelligence that we did make reference to. Understand yourself. Those are important assets that you need to have within in order for you to rise the 8th time after having fallen 7 times. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. We have time for just one question on this. But Do we have one question from someone who was not up front? Okay. So, ladies, would you mind coming, please? Thank you so much. The other thing, of course, there's you've heard the element of failing fast. So that try to don't want to fail over, in slow motion. Fail fast.
Thank you for this. Mine is more a comment on why businesses fail. Okay. I've discovered that most businesses fail, like I mentioned before, because we're getting into it for the wrong reasons, right? Secondly, we're not patient. A business will not flourish within the first 2 years. But you find that people are expecting to make huge mention before. That's the time when you need to get your name out there. You are needing to establish your networks and all these things. And that's the time you need to get known. Because people, you're busy trying to make money and you forget to keep and maintain those first few customers that came the first event. That is how we succeed. Because at the end of the day, someone comes to you because there's something you're offering that they need, okay? And I like the part about failing. Because when we are talking about failure, in my book, Unleashing the Business Predator, I give an example of a parent who claps hands when the daughter comes from school and says, I failed. He claps hands and he celebrates. But the day the daughter comes saying, I did it today, I passed, he keeps, the days you were passing, you're not learning anything. But the days you were failing, you walked away with a lesson. So even if you failed 10 times over, what lesson are you gleaning from those failures? All right. And lastly, I have another book. It says, it's entitled, If I Knew Then What I Know Now. In that book, I have a collection of entrepreneurs that are from my women-inspired networks because there are now 2 groups, that you shouldn't have to go through. Check for the book on Amazon. It would help. Maybe share it with some mentees because we cannot reach every mentee. But the tips that were put there are tips that people will benefit from. For example, everyone is talking about collaborations and partnerships, but it's not everybody you can partner with. Some will steal your idea and run with it and you're left high and dry, okay? So you'd rather get that tip first before you make that.
Thank you very much. Mine, one is a comment and then one is a question. Talking about the economy, there's a convention we attended for business people. And this gentleman said to us, you need to be, like we've been saying, you need to know your economy and what is happening in your economy. And he said, Zimbabwe you're offering, you need to bear in mind that it's a township economy. So take, for example, things that now everyone is complaining about prices, this is expensive, this is that. So instead of packaging, say, 2 kgs of sugar, you package 1 kg because people are buying stuff, to survive on a daily basis. So you kind of break it down and say, okay, people can't afford 2 kgs of sugar, but they can afford what? 1 kg. I remember I was speaking to my helper and I was saying, I want seeds, maize seeds, because we want to plant maize. And she was telling me there are actually people who are selling you a cup of those seeds and you can actually buy and you can go and plant. So that's, I think, as entrepreneurs, we need to recognize where we are right now in Zimbabwe. It's a township economy. So how you're packaging your products or services, bear in mind that that is where we are right now. And then my question is, we talk about passion, keep doing it, but when do you get to a point where you just have to pivot? When do you get to a point where you can, you know that, okay, this, no matter, even if I try it for the next 10 years, is not going to work, I need to think of plan B. Because yes, we're saying within 2 years, you probably won't make much, but change or diversify or just drop the idea altogether.
All right, I'm seeing everyone's jumping to answer that question. Not quite. Anyone want to answer that? Okay, there's a hand. Please, and if we can just be...
All right, my name is Denzel.
What do you do, Denzel?
I'm a consultant. I'm consulting with startups. kind of enjoy just developing them and trying to see. So as a young guy, I'm trying to play with guys my age to see how we can build something together. So I think the question that you're asking is relative to a book that I'm reading by Andrew Grove. He's a former executive at Intel. So he was discussing how they used paranoia to then know when they were in the wrong game. It's called a strategic inflection point, where they now had competition so high that the Japanese were producing the same product that they were producing at the higher quality, cheaper, to the extent that they couldn't compete. So when they realized it, he sat with the CEO, and then the CEO was like, so if somebody else came into this business, what's the one thing that you'll do? And then he said, he would remove us from semiconductor memory chips. So then he said, okay, how about we walk out of the door and come back anew, and then we do that. So he then says the moment that they switching off the emotional side of the business, where they say as much as we are attached to this, let's remove the emotional part and be objective about it and do what most finance guys will do when they're looking at the numbers. The numbers don't add up. Yeah. So he said when they then made the decision, by the time they made the decision to say, we are leaving this, we are now moving to microprocessors, they say their customers were like, it's about time. They went into, when he said he makes the speech to some of the executives, they go like, we were wondering when you were going to say objective, let's be realistic. Is this working or not? Mm. That's how they got out of the way.
Denzel, I think you'd gone out earlier on when I looked for, I said your name, Denzel Sita, right? Yes. Yeah, I wanted you to tell us about your business, but I think you've advertised yourself in another way. And you want to...
I've been lucky enough, I was working with ProWeb as AddUp. But the other thing is, if you're at that point and you're actually considering that, I think you have to go for the emotional side of things and really say, if this is the thing that I'm so passionate about, that I will stay up 24 hours a day just to get this done, then that's something you continue with. But if it's something you're questioning, you don't know if you're going in the right direction, you don't have the passion to push it forward, it might be time to give it up. And even if you do have the passion, you have to look at the numbers. Obviously, it's a combination of things. But I've seen a lot of folks, huge, fancy international spa. She had no money to start with it, no experience, nothing. And when I was working with her and the other person that was mentoring her, she decided to start in another way. And she is like 3 years into the journey, and she's going to get there. But she had to back off and say, okay, this is a different idea I had to start with. So I don't know. The reason was that I was too afraid to put my artwork out there. And I didn't have the skill set. So then I spent the next 20-something years doing marketing. And now I've taken the exact skill set I had before. My company's 5 years old. And it's because I had those other skills that came on. So sometimes your idea you might not have the right skills to get that idea forward. Femina, if there wasn't passion behind that, it would have gone a long time ago, because my grandfather said the clothing industry is a very hard one to be in. He said we didn't know how to do anything else, so he stuck with it. So you got to have that passion, because otherwise you need to go somewhere else. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Somehow we also need to know what NAST is doing what NAST can do for this body of entrepreneurs. Maybe not exactly now, but I think you owe us one as far as that's concerned. And our panelists, thank you so much. Thank you for the passion, and thank you for being honest and putting it out there. And so as you move, I'll just be saying one or two things. You do know that you had an opportunity to bring a banner, right? And I'm not seeing as many banners as we should be seeing for a free opportunity. Are we aware of that? So I think the ones who did bring, surely, even though our time is fast spent, we need to give them 30 seconds each as credit. Silwani Tours, 30 seconds. Give us your elevator pitch. Just so we know what you're all about. Thank you. Don't sit down, because 30 seconds I'll be standing.
Okay, thank you so much. Silwani Tours is a tourism company. We are into transport And now we have moved to conservation. We've got a small nature park. That's the only nature park in Bulawayo province, anyway. So that's what we do. We want to share smiles with you and our visitors.
We were recently at the Marketers Association, Zimbabwe. Did we see your coaches? I think we saw a lot of their bus. So yeah, no, they carried quite a few people there. We won't ask how much you made, but it looked good. Well done, keep it going.
Hello, my name is Titch, and I'm with Tate Nash. And we are thinking, and I was saying this to Nonto when she invited me, we're a small business. But when she said, look, entrepreneurs are coming to get together, it started making me think big. And if you won't believe it, this whole concept, the logos, I'm just holding my business cards now, was done this week specifically for this organization. Space, I think it's given us brilliant ideas. It's opened up our minds, and we are raring to go into the future.
Fantastic. You are at the annual Entrepreneur Get-Together. You have gotten together with other entrepreneurs, proudly supported by the Coleman Group of companies. At this moment, I'm going to hand us over to the founder of the Coleman Group and ask him to kind of wrap things up around this time, so make a date.
Thank you very much. I'm actually happy that Tate Nash has achieved all the objectives of this event, which was doing so much, but to ask them, what are you doing? You can't even summarize it. So now that Tate Nash has got a banner, I think that should please focus into what it is that we want to do. At the basis or the foundation of why we as Coleman produced, but also we saw the need to begin to build lasting businesses. So that was the reason why, as you can see, we say material business originals, building lasting businesses. And this year, 2019, for sure it's an annual event. We want to recognize Check, published in 1901. All right? Truly entrepreneurial. When they started to check a family, unfortunately we couldn't have them here today. When they started, they were making large teams for workers that would come to work in the industries. And they used to make the large teams. That's why they call large teams. That are all over Southern Africa, they diversify. And they're presently one of the oldest businesses that are still standing. And so to us, we actually want to recognize them as the intro of 2019. Because they've been with us, they've stood the test of time, and we want them to be an inspiration. The foundation is what sets it. So this year, we would want to recognize Chega. We will send this to them. We were trying to get them here. We've been trying to get them here, we couldn't, but this will be sent to them. Courtesy and in support also. This is a cow's horn that has been curved. So I can bring that up. And then this is the point where my wife normally would say, sit down. Because I do take risks, and I know we're live on live stream, and one of the three things that we need to look at our education. We saw from the panels, our education was tailored for employees. We don't have people to employ them now. We need to change it. That's number one. Number two, we need also to invest extensively in entrepreneurship. Start doing that now. And government has put $500,000 into what is called the venture fund. All right? So this is the bold component. We were bold when we were starting this. It's going to be annual. This is the bold component as well. Today, we are starting what will be called Material Growth Fund 1. All right? And we want to tap into that venture fund that has been set aside. The entrepreneurs are there. We can see the banners. they need access to the funding for them to scale up from what they currently are. I made some reservations because with confirmations from the British Council, as you have seen, our entrepreneurs need mentoring, business development, and we need to bring in subject matter experts. And for us to do that, we need a grant to be afforded to entrepreneurs for business development, because these subject matter experts will need, will need funding, or rather, the ZITF. We would want to help capacitate and begin that operation, that office working. Because it is closer to us, it will be able to tap into the entrepreneurs that are here, that are able to access it. So we would also want to look at that. So already we come through. And the application requirements will be, if you will match, we will raise 10% of the fund and then request the Minister of Finance to put 90%. And to Kev would say, if you match us dollar to dollar of what we will raise, we will hang the businesses to grow from where they currently are to the next level, so that we continue to build lasting businesses. All right? Next year, let's check on this. Next year, let's check on this. And then finally, thank you to all of you that have made it to the Nobel First Entrepreneur Get Together. Thank you to our panelists. Bena is also a graphic designer. We also want to thank Forbes, has already spoken. We also want to thank Girls in Skies, Natasha, who has also handled some of our social media marketing. We also obviously want to thank MLB Capital as well, that have been part of the process. We definitely would want to thank the Coleman Group of Companies, Arcadia Energy, your service, your renewable energy service company, Ezra Foods, your organic. I'd like to thank all of you for coming through, and please give yourselves a round of applause. May we meet next year, having fallen forward and bigger than what we currently are, and may we look forward to 100 years of continued tradition. Thank you very much.